Hi, my name is Madeline Okuniewski, and I'm going to talk about communication and social media's effect on it. I will be addressing the evolution of communication up to the introduction of social media. Then I will talk about how social media has affected communication in both positive and negative ways. The earliest form of communication was, of course, the voice. The voice has evolved from grunts and clicks of the vocal cords in ancient times to a total of 6,909 living languages today, according to nationsonline.org. One of the earliest forms of documented communication are Egyptian hieroglyphics from 3300 BC. Hieroglyphics make up the Egyptian alphabet. They are little pictures used like letters to convey thoughts. There are over 700 hieroglyphics in the Egyptian alphabet, none standing for vowels or punctuation. The next landmark innovation in communication came in Europe in 1445 when German printer Johannes Gutenberg was credited with creating the first mechanical printing press. Printing presses were used to make mass productions of books, most commonly the Bible. Due to his design, it became known as the Gutenberg Bible. The next notable advancement didn't occur for another 150 years. 1609 marks the year that newspapers were first established in Europe. These newspapers were like a mix between a brochure and a pamphlet containing provoking stories and current events in the news. Newspapers didn't travel to North America until 1690 when Ben Harris printed the first colonial newspaper in Boston. 42 years later, in 1732, Poor Richard's Almanac was published, marking the first appearance of popular culture in America. This was followed by the first edition of American Magazine, printed by Andrew Bradford in 1741. The next important addition to communication was the first telegraph line set by Samuel Morse in 1844. Through the telegraph, messages were composed using a series of dots and dashes known as Morse code. These messages were the first form of communication that could send information over long distances with just the push of a button, completely reinventing the way people connected with each other. Shortly after, in 1873, the Scholes and Glidden typewriter was invented. Movable print dated all the way back to 1041 BC in China, but the Scholes and Glidden typewriter was a slightly different concept. It was for more personal use rather than mass production. It also introduced the QWERTY keyboard, which is the keyboard layout we still use today. 3 years later, one of the most revolutionary inventions of communication history was introduced. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell created the telephone. The telephone was the same concept as the telegraph, only the telephone carried sound waves. This revolutionized communication, allowing people to quickly contact each other and carry out short conversations over long distances. However, the first transcontinental call didn't occur for another 39 years. Immediately following the invention of the telephone was the invention of the phonogram. This was invented in 1877 by Thomas Edison. The phonogram was able to record sounds and play them back. This is the foundation on which today's recorded music was built. The next significant creation was the radio, invented in 1894 by Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi. Initially, it was merely capable of transmitting electronic signals through the air to no further than his garden. It was used originally by navies in similar manner to telegraphs, transmitting dots and dashes. It wasn't until Lee de Forest's invention of the Audion vacuum tube that audio and radio could be used together. This led to the first ever radio broadcast on December 24, 1906. The following clip is a recreation of that broadcast.
Good evening. This is Professor Reginald A. Fessenden speaking to you from Brant Rock, Massachusetts, at the tower of the National Electric Signaling Company. I'm going to play an Edison recording of Handel's Largo. Next, I will play O Holy Night on the violin, followed by a short passage from the Bible.
Radio quickly became one of the most commonly used sources of entertainment, ranging from music and stories to events in the news. Nearly 20 years later, in 1925, the first public demonstration of the electronic television, invented by Philo Farnsworth, took place. This led to silent films, talkies, variety shows, and TV series. These were the roots of television and film at large scales, which continue to advance today. As these media outlets continued to advance, new ones were still being created. Email was invented in 1970 by Shiva Ayyadurai. Email is considered the first and is still the most used form of social media, 43 years later. Following this, the microprocessor was introduced by Intel. This is the center of the computers, which began to rise incredibly. After Vinton Cerf and Bob Kahn founded the Internet in 1974, and Bill Gates and Paul Allen introduced Microsoft, personal computers and cell phones began to take over the world. Sir Timothy John Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web in 1991, which led to Mark Anderson's Netscape browser in 1993, followed up by Microsoft Internet Explorer in 1995. Personal computers and cell phones continued to advance and shrink and become so popular that anyone listening to this has one. Social media has advanced from AOL Instant Messenger, 1997, to MySpace, 2003, to Facebook, 2004, to Twitter, 2006, and now Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat. The list is nearly endless. The evolution of communication has led to what we have now. Nearly every aspect of former communication is now available in the personal computer you have in your pocket. Social media in the palm of your hand, literally. Social media has its pros and cons. On the plus side, we have advanced from snail mail and telegraphs, which could take weeks and even months to reach its destination, to being able to send a message in less than a minute to nearly every place on the planet. Information spreads like wildfire, and with the help of Google, introduced in 1996 and is now responsible for more than half of internet traffic, you can simply type in a keyword and are given an infinite number of sources right at your fingertips. However, social media has impaired our ability to communicate face-to-face. We would rather text than pick up the phone. We'd rather scroll through Instagram while in the waiting room than make awkward eye contact with the stranger waiting with us. It also invades our privacy and disconnects us from real life. Kate Lavelle, a freshman at Bloomsburg University studying political science, says she spends about 3 total hours on social media per week. She agrees that social media has both a positive and negative effect on humans. Here's the effects she's witnessed.
I feel there are negative and positive effects from social media. One positive effect I feel like is that social media can be spread so fast and throughout so many different places so quickly. And an example of this would be because my cousin Jillian, when she first got diagnosed with cancer last year, her dream was to meet Taylor Swift, and we started tweeting at Taylor Swift's accounts, and we started doing hashtags on Twitter and Facebooking, and eventually the word got to Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift was able to send her a gift basket, and then she was able to meet another star named Carly Rae Jepsen. So it's just kind of amazing how social media has become such a prevalent tool for spreading messages throughout the world. And then a negative effect for social media would be that I feel like a lot of kids, from a young age, are starting to let social media take over their life. They spend so much time on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and everything, and it kind of consumes their life. And they don't have a chance to go outside and be active or be social with other people. So I feel like that's a very negative part of social media.
Overall, we have advanced incredibly since the hieroglyphics of 3300 BC. It's amazing to be able to reconnect with old friends and see how family is doing overseas. But maybe it's time to put a hold on social media, put down that little computer you're holding, and actually approach someone, instead of just Facebook stalking them.